What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. I am your host for today's episode, Young RG, Robert Garcia, as Coach likes to call me. And in today's episode, we are continuing on with our theme this week of reviewing each NFL division day by day, diving into each team in each division and going over what their biggest needs remaining are as we quickly approach the NFL 2026 draft. A lot to talk about, and for this division in particular, it's going to be a lot more draft picks than usual, so be sure to stay tuned, guys, and let's get into it. As you can see here, guys, we are going to be taking a look at the NFC South. All the teams in this division, what their biggest needs are. A lot of kind of underwhelming success for some of these teams last year. Of course, the Panthers are division winners at 8-9, battling out with the Bucs, who were also 8-9. And there was some kind of chicanery, tomfoolery going on at the end of the season there by the NFL to try to get the Bucs into the playoffs. But I digress. Panthers still won the division regardless. This is definitely a weird but kind of sad division to talk about. In my opinion, I think this division is going to get so much better next year. I think the teams are just going to improve. We saw improvement from all these guys. Maybe a few more so than others, but regardless, let's dive right into it. Of course, going over the top three positions of need. And we've been over this, guys. You know how this works. Replacing each position of need with an ideal free agent or draft pick. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, it's going to be a lot more draft picks than usual with these teams because none of these teams really have any cap space available. The cap space that they do have remaining is sort of reserved for the draft picks that they will have and have to eventually sign. You're going to be seeing a lot of draft picks. And starting off with the Atlanta Falcons, a team that brought up the rear last year. I take that back. Falcons fans, you don't get that much disrespect. Focusing on the guys that they retained, they, of course, franchise tag tight end Kyle Pitts. That was kind of a no-brainer. It just makes the most sense to A, try to work out a long deal for him if you'd like, or B, you want to see another year to see if, he can be a consistent tight end that you drafted with a very, very high overall pick. I believe he was the 5th overall pick in the 2022 draft. I could totally be wrong. There's definitely some questions that he has left unanswered. So we'll see what he can do there. And then we get to the quarterback. Falcons fans, I feel for you. Falcons fans, I truly do feel for you. It's rough out here in Atlanta. They, of course, signed a quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, the only other left-handed quarterback in the NFL to come in and compete with their second-year pro, Michael Penix. It's just rough days if Tua wins this QB battle. That's all I'm going to say, y'all. Moving forward down on the line, they, of course, signed the wide receiver from the Eagles, Jahan Dotson. Also signed a wide receiver who was originally a Falcon, went to the Bears, and is now back in Atlanta, Olamide Zaccheaus. They also signed Austin Hooper, who was also another tight end, was in Atlanta, went to the Patriots, now back in Atlanta. They also signed a punter in Jake Bailey, signed an edge rusher, Azeez Ojulari, also signed another edge rusher in Samson Ebukam. Signed another defensive interior lineman in Deshaun Hand, former Charger, and also signed cornerback Darnay Holmes. A couple of releases, not much. It's just the quarterback Kirk Cousins, which makes the most sense. Darnell Mooney is a bit of a rough one in my opinion. I think Jahan Dotson's good. I don't think he quite replaces the level of Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's deep threat ability is just kind of what puts him over the top, and he makes a lot of plays downfield, made a lot of plays downfield for Kyle Pitts. So we'll see, getting into their positions of need. And of course, you'll see it there at the bottom. But we are going to look at their top three positions of need. And it is, of course, defensive end, defensive tackle, and wide receiver. Nothing has been officially announced yet. So this is all alleged. This is all speculation. But based on the things that are happening with James Pierce Jr., It's looking more and more like he's not going to be playing next year. So that is definitely going to be a big, bright need for them at defensive end. Defensive tackle, in my opinion, is also a bit of a need. They did get Deshaun Hand. However, I think, oh my God, I'm blanking on the other guy's name. Oh no, it was just Deshaun Hand. Yeah, other guys were edges. My apologies. They did get Deshaun Hand, but I'm thinking they're looking for a more, younger piece at that position. Defensive tackle for sure. And then, like I mentioned, wide receiver. This is more so wide receiver depth. Of course, they already have Drake London, who's a bona fide stud wide receiver 1. I probably should have just put wide receiver 2 up there, but regardless, they're looking for some wide receiver depth, to get some weapons for either Tua or for Michael Penix, whoever wins. I can't believe that's even a statement we have to say, but regardless, my opinion on who I think they can replace for each of these positions. For the first position up, it's going to be the defensive end, and it's going to be Malachi Lawrence, the defensive end out of UCF, hometown of Kentucky. And he is just a absolute behemoth. He is, I shouldn't say absolute behemoth, but for a defensive end, he is, the measurables are insane. He's 6'4", ran a 4.5 40, 253. I mean, he's pretty much what they can use to replace James Pierce at that position. You also got to remember it's not going to be a exact, replacement. Falcons don't have any first-round picks this year because they traded their first-round pick last year to acquire James Pierce. And so obviously we see how that's kind of working out for them. So they're going to have to go a little bit deeper into the draft, use their second-round pick most likely. And it's probably going to be on a guy who balled out in his 2025, his last year in college. He had a career high of 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, even had 3 pass breakups. He was all Big 12 first team. So it's something that they can use. He's often been compared to Boye Mafe, of course, the defensive end, Super Bowl champion defensive end who signed a big contract. I'm blanking on the team he signed for. But regardless, I feel like this is a good player that they could get at this position that could provide you some value, to try to recoup what you lost in James Pierce. For a defensive tackle, although they don't have much cap, they have enough cap. I think they could sign another, solid defensive tackle there just to kind of fill the void with Deshaun Hand and, kind of give him some help in that regard. I think a rotational pieces of Deshaun Hand and DJ Reader would be really, really solid. I think their defense could, work even more wonders than they did without them. And as far as the wide receiver, I'm going to go with Malachi Fields. Based on where he is ranked, they could definitely nab him with their 3rd overall pick. He's often been compared to Keon Coleman, who was obviously a first-round pick. So he's kind of got, those intangibles as well. 6'4", big frame wide receiver. For whoever your quarterback is going to be, he's got a big target on him. So definitely something that they can help. Like I mentioned, 6'4", 218, got insane wingspan. He's got the ability to catch contested balls is crazy. He just is able to get the football at its apex, like at the perfect moment. And again, for 2 quarterbacks that are really struggling to get the ball to their wide receivers, I think he would be a fantastic pairing opposite of Drake London, and so, yeah, I think he's definitely somebody, again, he will be a rookie, so there's, I'm giving you the best of the best with these guys, but I'm trying to look at the highest upside here and look at, potential replacements. I think Malachi Fields, funny enough, 2 guys named Malachi, I think it would be a really solid pairing for the Falcons here. Moving over to the division winner, Carolina Panthers. They went on a spending spree this year, including a massive overpay, in my opinion, of defensive end Jalen Phillips off the Eagles. Just gave him a ridiculous offer, and I don't know if they were betting against themselves or not, but regardless, he's on your team now. They do also sign Devin Lloyd as well, the Jags linebacker. I think he will be, in my opinion, I think he was also overpaid a little bit as well, but we'll see how he looks, in those regards, being on the Panthers now. They also signed a tackle in Rasheed Walker, more so of a backup piece in that regard. Also signed a backup quarterback in Kenny Pickett, signed a wide receiver depth piece in John Mechie, signed a center, Luke Fortner, to kind of, fortify that offensive line. Also re-signed their safety, Nick Scott, signed A.J. Dillon from was he on the Packers last year? Might have still been on the Packers or Eagles or something like that. Oh, I forgot what team he was on. But you signed A.J. Dillon to replace the departure of Rico Dowdle. Also re-signed their punter. I almost said Panther. Re-signed their punter in Sam Martin. And as far as some releases, they let go of Ashawn Robinson, the defensive interior, and of course traded away Andy Dalton. So in my opinion, their biggest needs are right tackle, defensive end, and tight end. Right tackle is 31-year-old, and I'm blanking on his name right now. Oh my God, it's Taylor Morton. That's who it is. Taylor Morton. Oh my God. Yes, Taylor Morton, the right tackle. He's getting a little bit older, was a former draft pick of theirs back in 2017. He's already 31 years old, so you're definitely looking to try to draft a replacement, kind of get somebody there up and learning. And, again, offensive line is a brutal position to play, so having depth pieces there is never a bad thing. Defensive end, again, somebody to pair with Jalen Phillips. I think, you spend big money on somebody like that, you get another piece much younger and much cheaper to pair with him, and hopefully you have a amazing monstrous D-line, of course, with Derek Brown still anchoring the interior of that. So yeah, I think that those two absolute must. And for the tight end, of course, Tommy Tremble has not worked out. Jatavion Sanders has not worked out. I think, again, just another option for Bryce Young, a big bodied, sure target, safety, security blanket would be, just do massive things for him and his improvement. And, he had a lot of improvement last year. I got to give credit to Bryce Young, after having a horrible rookie season, getting benched for Andy Dalton, and then only getting the starting job back because, unfortunately, and, I hate saying this when it happens, but it's just crazy how, the whole storyline played out. Course, Andy Dalton gets into a car accident, forces him out of the game, or forces him out of the, on the injury. I think they put him on the IR, if I'm not mistaken. Bryce Young gets the, starting range back, and he kind of takes off with it. He obviously hasn't lived up to the number 1 overall pick, but I think that he definitely has shown signs of improvement. That's really all you can ask for from your young players. So as far as guys that I think can replace each of these positions of need, I think for the right tackle position, I like Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. He is just, you want to talk about massive, 6'7", yeah, do the thing. 315, so you want to maybe have him lose a little bit more weight there. At tackle, you kind of want him a little bit to be more mobile. Maybe kind of put him around that under 300 range. We can get him around like 290 if possible. But he is a fantastic pass blocker. He's not a great run blocker by any means. However, if Bryce Young is really going to take off like you want him to, definitely put somebody like this in front of him. He was the top-ranked prospect in South Carolina's 2023 class, and he's just a rare athlete for his position. He is pretty mobile, I will say, at that position, or at that weight, I should say. He ran a 4.940, which doesn't mean much, but it's still crazy. He's moving that fast. He had a 33.5-inch vert, 84-inch wingspan. So, he is just a monster human being. I think that he will service them fantastically at the right tackle position. It's just somebody to kind of bring in to learn behind Morton a little bit. Once you probably move off from Morton next season, or again, not hoping injury for anyone, but you just always want to plan for injuries with the offensive line. We'll see what happens in that regard. So yeah, I think he'd be a great signing there. As far as the defensive end, we are, of course, again, going to the draft. I should have mentioned again, Panthers, our team, don't have much draft capital, much cap space. So they really need to make some magic work in the draft. And for the defensive end, I'm going with Joshua Josephs, who was just a pure edge rusher. He's kind of similar to Odafe Owe in that way, where he's not great at all in the run game and in run defense. So definitely looking for him to improve in that regard. But he is just a do-it-all pass rusher. He ran a 4.640, so he's got some speed on him. I think he can definitely be an addition to this D-line, and, just bringing in a third, even if you have a third down pass rush specialist, I think he can definitely provide some big value there for him. You could definitely draft him around the second round. I think you use a second round pick on him would be a solid pick, a solid get in my opinion. And as far as the tight end, we're again going to the draft, and I'm going to go with the tight end. I'm going to go with the tight end out of Baylor. It is going to be Michael Trigg, the big 6'4", 240, tight end out of there. He was often compared to Sam Laporta is his, biggest comparison. So take that for what you will. So he's got, again, just massive wingspan. We're talking about, getting these wide receivers and these tight ends that, have big catch radiuses. So you don't have to be as accurate. You'd obviously still like to be, but you don't have to be as accurate. That can really bail you out in some of those positions. That's really what a security blanket does, to bail you out of positions when you really need a catch and, some run. He actually does have some bit of mobility for his size. And he can, kind of get in and out of breaks pretty easily and pretty cleanly. He wins against linebackers who can't match his speed, which is, that's, oh man, can you imagine having a tight end like that who can beat linebackers? Again, you really have to kind of dig deep in the draft to find some, talent, in my opinion. These are where the scouts really come into play, and we really see who's made of what. And I think he can be a great slot receiving tight end for the Panthers. Again, just a massive target for them. And I think, I think for Bryce Young, it's definitely going to be a plus for him. Anything to improve what's already been a pretty solid trajectory since the massive fall for Bryce Young. Now, Saints fans, let's talk. Obviously, had some strong words to say about you guys going into this season. And, you proved me wrong in some regards. Still, obviously, finished last in the division, which was still the correct prediction of mine. But regardless, you definitely surprised me, and I will eat my crow where I may. But yeah, definitely surprised me there with the season you had. Tyler Shock, man, we'll see what happens this year. But as far as their additions and their retentions, they kind of really went out of nowhere with this signing with Travis Etienne, because they still have Alvin Kamara on the roster. And at this point, still to this day, he has not been traded or even talked about being traded. So I have no idea what they're doing there. We'll see what happens. They also signed the guard David Edwards to bolster that O-line for Tyler Shock, signed the linebacker Caden Ellis, signed tight end Noah Fant to give him another, he's more of a blocking tight end, but, regardless, still another quote-unquote weapon for Shuck. Re-signed their defensive interior lineman John Ridgway, signed the punter and Ryan Wright, and they also traded away their punter and Kai Kroger, so kind of a weird thing there, but, I can't remember the last time I saw a punter traded, but regardless, hey, if you're able to get something for him, I guess. Now, what are the three biggest remaining positions of need for the Saints? For the first one, it's no-brainer. It's wide receiver. Yes, you still have oh my God, I almost said Michael Thomas. No, not Michael Thomas. You still have Chris Olave there, of course. I don't know why I was thinking of Michael Thomas. Damn. Shout out Michael Thomas. But you still have Chris Olave there. You definitely need to give him another piece to, replace that. And give him some help on the outside as well. As far as the defensive end, you, of course, lost Cameron Jordan to retirement. So replacing him not only is just the position, but just what he meant to the franchise is going to be ridiculously hard to do. He was there all 10 years of his career, and we'll see if he's retiring or not. Has yet to sign with a team. But yeah, obviously a legendary career for Cameron Jordan there in NOLA. And the last one is, of course, cornerback. They traded away Marshawn Lattimore a couple seasons ago. Their starting quarterback right now is Kool-Aid McKinstry, who they drafted in the first round. We'll see what happens with him, but I think another cornerback to go alongside of him. The Saints defense was sneaky good last season, which is crazy to say under Brandon Staley. But yeah, we'll see. I think another cornerback there in that room will just help solidify that room for sure. And so for my opinions on who they will draft and or sign for the wide receiver, I'm going with Jeremy Bernard. He has got ridiculous I don't want to say ridiculous, but he is a really solid wide receiver out of Alabama. Had a pretty solid stats this last season, 64 receptions for 862 yards and 7 touchdowns, had an average yards per catch of 13.5. And yeah, he's definitely what you'd want in a wide receiver too. He's got great route running. He's amazing in the intermediate part of the field, reliable on third down, only 4 drops on 232 career targets. It's just a ridiculous catch rate. I mean, that's Keenan Allen numbers almost. He's also great at tracking the deep ball very well. So I think he has some real potential to be a great starting wide receiver too. And again, just more help for Shuck. He showed you a lot last season. So why not surround him with some really solid talent? I think Jeremy Bernard is a really good piece that they can get. And they can really get him realistically, like within the second round. Like that is kind of where his projections are. kind of like late second round, which is perfect for them. They can definitely get him with one of their picks. So yeah, I think he's a solid pick there. For the defensive end, I'm going with Joey Bosa. Not so much. Again, he doesn't have the Saints don't have much cap space, but I think you could fork out a little bit of money for Joey Bosa. He's probably not going to demand a whole lot. He's already at that back end of his career, but it's just a 1-year replacement at this point, just someone to fill the gap, pause if needed. And I think, he will be kind of obviously moved on from after this season. You're going to eventually have to address it in the draft moving forward, but I think, he can be a serviceable one-stop gap. And, he joins back as defensive coordinator in Brandon Staley. So we'll see what happens there. And as far as the cornerback, I think I like the guy out of Tennessee, Jermod McCoy. 6'1" corner, 188, so definitely needs to put a little bit of weight on. But I think he can be a serviceable cornerback too for the Saints. He's got great ball skills and instincts that translate to turnovers, which again, the best thing you can do for your offense is turn the ball over. The best thing you can do really as a defense is turn the ball over, that and of course score points. But yeah, I think he can definitely be a playmaker for them. He's fantastic in zone coverage, which Brandon Staley is typically what he runs. He's got a ridiculous recognition of route concepts and route techniques when they're in front of him. So again, just adding to that turnover battle, consistency that he brings. Only thing that kind of, poses a question is he did tear his ACL in 2025. So there are, of course, some red flags and things like that. But he is definitely somebody that I can see the Saints taking with a first-round pick. They are picking at 9, so maybe they do a little trade back. 9 is about the top of where he's being drafted or, projected to go. Some teams even have him falling out of the first round entirely, or not some teams, some websites and things like that have him falling out of the first round entirely. But we'll see what happens come draft day. But I definitely think it's something the Saints should consider, going heavy and, trying to get that lockdown cornerback. He, funny enough, was compared to Kool-Aid McKinstry. So if you really liked what you saw when you drafted him, why not duplicate it and put it on the other side of the field as well? And now moving on to the final team in this division. We are, of course, going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what was a massively disappointing season last year. I really thought, and I think others did as well, that Todd Bowles should have been fired after that year. First of all, not even reaching 500, and second of all, not even winning the division and therefore not making the playoffs. The Bucs definitely have a lot of things they need to work out in this offseason. So let's take a look at their additions and their retention. So, of course, they re-signed tight end Cade Otton. A little bit weird in my opinion. I didn't think Cade Otton fetched that much money for what he got. I think it was like a 3-year, $30 million deal or something like that. But hey, make your money, my dude. Congrats on that. I also like the signing of linebacker Alex Anzalone. I think he can provide some serviceable, injury concerns are just the only thing for him, but I think he can provide some serviceable play in that defense. They also signed running back Kenneth Walker, oh man, imagine, to pair him alongside of Bucky Irving. So another kind of typical, receiving kind of scat back threat. Kenneth Gainwell had some really solid games last year with the Steelers. So definitely a solid addition there for that offense. Signed a defensive interior lineman, Ashawn Robinson. Also signed edge rusher Al-Quddin Muhammad, and signed a backup quarterback, Jake Browning, of course, formerly of the Bengals. Now, what are the biggest positions, the biggest remaining positions of need for the Bucs? It is defensive end. It is cornerback. It is inside linebacker. It's this defense. Shocker. The offense is great. The defense was atrocious. And if they're going to be competing in this division and let alone in the conference, they definitely got to get this defense back on track. So to the shocker of nobody, it's 3 defensive pieces, and they're the biggest ones of need. Now, as they're going to address them, these are all going to have to come in the draft, and I wouldn't be surprised if all these 3 first-round picks are of these positions of need. The first one, the defensive end, and in my opinion, the most important position, is going to be Keldrick Falk, the defensive end out of Auburn. The 6'6", 276-pound beast is definitely somebody I can see them adding to their defense. He is a fantastic run defender on the edge, Khalil Mack style levels of run defense on the edge there. Not a great pass rusher in that regard, but if you're able to shut down the run, force the team to be one-dimensional, kind of force them into your, quote-unquote strength, which is your secondary, we'll see, what they can do here. But I really like Keldrick Faulk coming out of Auburn here to this team. To their second draft pick, in my opinion, I think they should go with South Carolina cornerback Brandon Siss. He's 6 feet, which, is right around that threshold for cornerbacks of whether they're too short or not. But he is got amazing explosion and downhill burst. So he's great in the run game, breaking on those, seeing screen passes or things like that. He's got loose hips. He's got smooth footwork. He's a great processor, like I mentioned, in the run game. So recognizing those pitches, those sweeps, those runs up the middle, he's great in run defense. You notice there's a little bit of a theme here. His biggest comparison is also Jalen Petrie out of the DB in Houston. So again, some pretty solid comparisons there. Like I mentioned, he ran a 4.40. So I mean, he's got some speed. I think he can be a really solid addition to this secondary. Just again, a team that's focusing on stopping the run this season. Forcing the other team to be one-dimensional, and the clock not being a factor come the end of games, where teams are just able to run it out on you. Because there's nothing more infuriating about watching a football game and watching your defense just let up 4-yard run, first down, and the game's over. So on to the last position of need for them, the interior linebacker position. I'm going to go with the linebacker out of Alabama, Deontay Lawson. I think that he can be, again, shocker. His best work shows up against the run. He's, again, covers some pretty serious ground, running a 4.6 40, which is pretty solid for a linebacker. He's got a long arm, 6 foot 2 inch frame. So he's got great tackling radius. And he's got some natural feet for zone coverage as well. So not only is he good against the run, he can also drop back in coverage as well when you need him to. So again, shocker, it's going to be all defense because that's what this team needs. Offense is pretty much set with everything. Their wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, quarterback. So yeah, everything's going to the defense. And again, wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs spent first three picks on defensive players. That is going to do it for me, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode, and of course tuning in for this division, which I think is going to surprise some people next year with the level of competition that ratchets up. I don't think each of these teams, not that the Panthers and honestly, not that any of them besides the Saints really were, but again, even the Saints were a little bit of a tough out there kind of towards the end of the season. So yeah, I think that it's going to be a much more competitive division, and I'm very excited to see it. Once again, be sure to check out our Patreon, some exclusive content that we're dropping there every week leading up to the draft. Especially, we got some mock drafts that we're going to be dropping there as well. You also get all of our YouTube content early, so that's always great. And if you don't feel like paying right up front, there is a 7-day free trial you can take on, so we can see, you can take a look at our content, see if you like it, and I promise you will. Of course, also be sure to check out all of the gang and their socials down below. We have Mike Dubb, our Commanders Insider, the Real AG, Alex Gibbons, your Chiefs Insider, and of course myself, Young RG, Robert Garcia, your Chargers Insider. Be sure to hit us up on all our socials, man. And we just want to talk ball, even if it's just about our teams. You have questions about our teams, or you want to just talk ball. We always have a ton of fun. So, we love talking ball. It is what it is. We love football, man. Be sure to check out the Lockdown Defense Sports Network on all of the channels down below as well, or all of the channels, all of the social media down below. X, formerly known as Twitter. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and of course, Gmail. Send us what you want, guys. We love making videos for you. We love producing this content for you. So just let us know what you want to see, and we'd be happy to make it. Once again, guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in the next one.